Frank Sinatra said, "The best revenge is massive success." What's a real-life example of this? Michael J. Fox has a great story about when he started out. Some bigwheel at the network didn't like him for the role of Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties. He was too short, not cute, not heartthrob enough. You're never going to see his face on a lunchbox. But the producer cast him anyway, and the show shot to #1 and stayed there. Fox sent him a Family Ties lunchbox with his face on it, and then Back to the Future 1, 2, 3 lunchboxes. Sylvester Stallone as well. Casting agents told him he was too stupid looking and he'd only get small roles as the thug who got beaten up. He said he literally went to every casting agent in New York City and got rejected by all of them. Even after he wrote Rocky and found producers, they didn't want him to star in it. Stallone famously said he would bury the Rocky script and let the worms eat it before he let James Caan star. My related fun fact to everyone who thinks Stallone is an idiot is that he wrote a script that won Best Picture. The guy who invented Ring cameras went on Shark Tank and was rejected by everyone. They all thought it would fail. Will you know the rest? Ron McNair had the police called on him when he was little because he was black and reading in a library. He grew up to be an astronaut, and the library he was kicked out of was later named after him. And he has a federal research program for undergrad college students that is named after him. I am a McNair Scholar. Shouts out to the Ronald E. McNair Scholar Baccalaureate program. I wouldn't be where I am today without my participation in that program. Italian industrialist, builder of tractors, made a mint out of it and rewarded himself with a new Ferrari. Ferrari broke down. Needed a new clutch. Wealthy industrialist waited patiently for his new clutch to arrive, and after many weeks it finally showed up. Same clutch he was putting in his tractors, more than twice the price. A little bit annoyed at this, he rang Ferrari to complain. They told him go back to building tractors, leave supercars to us. And Lamborghini was born. When Lady Gaga was in college, some of her classmates had a Facebook group called Stefani Germanata, You'll Never Be Famous. Pretty sure she proved them wrong. Nothing to do with the question asked, but my favorite Sinatra story is him asking a waiter what's the biggest tip he ever received. $200, Mr. Sinatra. Yeah, well here's $300. By the way kid, who gave you a $200 tip? You, Mr. Sinatra. Sinatra told a story on Carson that I love. Frank was at a restaurant with his agent in New York City, and Don Rickles came over. He said, "Frank, I'm meeting a girl here soon, and she's a big fan of yours. I've told her I know you, and I don't think she believes me. On your way out, would you mind coming over to say hello?" Frank says sure, and when he's done his coffee and everything he goes over. "Hiya, Don. Good to see you again. And who is this beautiful?" "God, Frank, can't you see we're eating here? I'll talk to you tomorrow, come on." Aaron French, chef owner of restaurant The Lost Kitchen in rural Maine, co-owned a restaurant in the town of Belfast with her husband. A very tumultuous relationship ended with him changing the locks on the building with all of her equipment inside. She licked her wounds, leased space in an old mill building in her tiny hometown of Freedom, and built from the ground one of the best restaurants in the country, with a coveted reservation that is fabled for its difficulty to get a table. Has her own multi-season documentary on TV and is absolutely killing it in the culinary world now. Harlan Ellison sent every writing award he received to one of his old professors that said he'd never be successful. Sony and Nintendo were working on a console together before the N64 came out, intending to utilize Nintendo's gaming hardware combined with Sony's sound tech to create games with more immersive sound capabilities than have been seen before. Partway through development and immediately following Sony's announcement of their partnership, Nintendo backed out of the deal, which if you're not aware of Japanese business etiquette, is kind of a dick move. Nintendo backed out to work with Philips to put Nintendo games on the CDI, which resulted in the worst received Nintendo games of all time. Sony, out of spite, went on to make the PlayStation one of the best-selling consoles in gaming history and cement themselves as a massive player in the console wars to this day. Blockbuster laughed baby Netflix out of the room with their idea. Then later, grown-up Netflix killed the Blockbuster. My mom. She, like the rest of her family, were all dirt poor. For them, it was traditional that they wouldn't go to college and would instead focus on finding a decent at best job as quickly as possible while also getting married and starting families young. My mom was different. She decided instead to go to college, and while she did drink on occasion, she stayed clear of the drugs that had ruined so many of her cousins' lives. She told me that her entire family looked down on her and said that she was wasting her time. Well, now she is currently the only one who owns a house and has a stable, well-paying career. My generation of cousins saw her success and are now following in her footsteps. Julie Andrews was very popular as Eliza Doolittle in the stage version of My Fair Lady. However, when the film version was being developed, the head of Warner Brothers Studios, Jack Warner, decided that she wasn't well known enough. They wanted a big-name star in the role, so Audrey Hepburn was cast instead, despite needing her singing to be dubbed over. With the role no longer available, Andrews instead took on the role of the titular character in Mary Poppins. The film was a huge critical and commercial success, and earned Andrews both a Golden Globe and an Academy Award for her performance as the magical nanny. In her Golden Globe acceptance speech, Andrews referenced her snub for My Fair Lady, saying, "My thanks to a man who made a wonderful movie and who made all this possible in the first place, Mr. Jack Warner." David Tepper, after being passed on for partner multiple times at Goldman Sachs, decided to go work for himself. A few decades later, he bought his ex-boss's house, John Corzine, in the Hamptons for $43 million. He then proceeded to demolish the thing and put up an even more expensive mansion. One of my best friends in college was unpopular. The guys on my floor thought he was a dork and dismissed him. 5 years after graduating, he joined a .com as employee number 3. As the company grew, he hired his friends, me included. 10 years after graduation, he retired on his .com wealth. I love reconnecting with people from college and letting them know that RB retired at 35. The subtext is that if they'd been nicer to him, they could have made millions. Guy in my class in middle school was always sleeping from staying up late playing Halo 2. He was really good, like travel to tournaments and win them on weekends good. The teacher said, "Enjoy your video games now because you'll be flipping burgers for life." He bought himself and his parents' houses at 19 from YouTube streaming money. Guy my dad went to high school with got bullied regularly by one guy in particular. Fast forward some years later, and the guy not only has his own dealership but has an ad air locally. He ends the commercial with something like, "Ask for bully's name when you get here," as an ultimate disrespect. Not too long after, word gets around that bully never really did anything after graduating and blew his head off some time after the ad aired. Leaving a job where my boss told me, "We pay you what you're worth," to make 1.5x what they did 12 months later and 2x a year after that. Ford, Lamborghini, Shelby, then you have all the drivers that left or didn't get picked by Ferrari and ended up winning for McLaren and other teams. If I remember correctly, Jaguar and Lola had beef with Ferrari too. Dude single-handedly insulted out of a whole racing or sports car industry. There's a great story about Frank Sinatra getting upset and throwing a bottle of ketchup at someone in a restaurant. After a stunned silence, Don Rickles quipped, "Hey Frank, could you pass the ketchup?" John Gordon was sent home from school with a report card, and on that report card was a note to his parents from the headmaster pleading with them to not let him go into the science field to waste anyone's time. Several times he has been in trouble because he will not listen, but will insist on doing his work in his own way. I believe he has ideas about becoming a scientist. On his present showing, this is quite ridiculous. It would be a sheer waste of time, both on his part and of those who have to teach him, is what the report card said. today, that report card is the only thing he has framed in his office, which is in a building that has now been named after him, after the many contributions to nuclear transplantation and cloning. He also has a Nobel Prize. Also, he has been knighted. He has received many honors and awards in addition. And the only thing he has framed is that report card telling him not to waste anyone's time by trying science. Friends, thank you for watching. Please share your stories below in the comments and see you on the next videos. Have a good day.